It's going to be almost 8 years, and I can't imagine because the Rohingya crisis have been existing for decades long and without any solution. I was only 14 back then. I was a kid when we left home. The gun shootings by the military have started a week before we left home, and it was non-stop gun shooting around us. And they started burning our homes 3 days before we left. We still thought it's gonna be a normal day. Things gonna go fine. We'll get back to the normal day, because this is what we've experienced so many times in our lives in Rakhine State in Myanmar. When we arrived in Kutupalong in Cox's Bazar, it was like a field without any shelters. So everything happened after we arrived. I had to force myself to start working with organizations as a volunteer, both to help my family, myself financially, also to help my community. So that's when I realized English was one of the most powerful tools I could ever use to directly communicate with the UN agencies, the local authorities, and the policymakers. And I had to force myself to learn it, to practice it very quickly. I hired a private tutor for me and for other girls as well around to go to and practice English and basic mathematics. So I went to tuition class in the camps, which is paid by myself. It's not a formal school that are led by anybody, for almost more than a year and a half before I applied to university in 2019. I lived in Cox's Bazar for over 6 years until 2022 December, before I was resettled to the United States on the 11th of December in 2022. Soon after I arrived in the US, I was able to testify before the Timeless Human Rights Commission at the US Congress. And since then I've been to almost every table of the UN and government where the discussions on Rohingya specifically and Burma more broadly have been taking places. My voice have been something unique because these people at the government level, at the international level, did not meet somebody who is coming from the ground, from the camp. In March earlier this year, 2025, I became the first resettled Rohingya to be able to return back to refugee camps in Bangladesh. For me, returning back to refugee camp was one of my top priority, because I always believe in community's perspective. Their opinions matter to me to change my advocacy language at the international level, and for me to carry their messages all the way to the right places, to be able to deliver their messages to the right people at the right times. It was both emotional, exciting for me to return back after just 2 years of my arrival in the US, now part of diaspora. So that gives me kind of a unique bridge to communicate the needs and the situations both in Myanmar and Bangladesh, and now what it feels for me to be part of diaspora.